the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, was added to a thread all discussing the plans for the attack on the Houthis, which we know was very successful, that no Americans were harmed. And the interactions in this gave me a lot of hope because I could see how they're all working together. However, Will, we would not be seeing this if it wasn't for a pretty big blunder.
This group chat was set up on Signal. According to the reporting, it seems to have been set up by the National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz. And inadvertently or somehow, they're investigating how it happened. Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor at The Atlantic, was added to that list, and it was not noticed. And they continued on these deliberations and discussions.
President Trump, though, has made a statement about Mike Waltz. I'm sure that he was talked to. I'm sure this was a discussion that happened.
From President Trump to NBC News that Michael Waltz has learned a lesson, and he's a good man, and also that he expressed confidence in his team and said he was not frustrated by the events leading up to the Atlantic story, and that he said there was the only glitch in 2 months, and it turned out to not be a serious one. So he is standing by his team as the Democrats are like sharks circling, feeling like this is their moment to try and capitalize and tear down some of the Trump administration.
They are already pushing for the entire team that was on this thread, which, by the way, had some pretty heavy hitters on this thread. You probably can't get any bigger other than not having President Trump directly on it.
It had the Vice President of the United States, the Secretary of Defense, CIA Director, Director of National Intelligence, many advisors,
and the editor-in-chief
of The
Atlantic. Now, if we're going to glean anything good off of this, if you read the text messages, the first thing I told Will here was, you know what I like to see? I like to see that these departments and these people are all actually working together and have a cordial relationship and having interesting conversations, are batting around ideas, are discussing plans in a way that I don't think is very Washington. And that's what helps. Look, you're going to have the negative, which is stuff like this is going to happen. But the positive is we can actually look and see on the record that this group of people, a lot of them under the age of 45 years old, are having real discussions and conversations like you or I would about the protection of our country.
One other thing that is littered with innuendo within this piece is that everything, he refers to war plans, he refers to things that appear classified, and the administration is pushing back firmly on that. Even Tulsi Gabbard in this hearing today, as well as the White House, had said no war plans were discussed, no classified material was sent to the thread.
I think we have that. Do we have that bite from Tulsi?
Yeah, and I want to point out one thing as well that's in his reporting is that they even reference, hey, these things will be in your high side inboxes, referring to, hey, classified material, look out for this.
Not coming through
the high side inbox is through the secure government system where they can read the classified material.
The information that was provided was not deemed classified.
As well as that a lot of people are trying to point out that how dare they use Signal, that this was actually put in place by the Biden administration.
Yeah, it was
that this
preloaded.
was, and I want to hear from the CIA director, John Ratcliffe, about Signal specifically.
One of the first things that happened when I was confirmed as CIA director was Signal was loaded onto my computer at the CIA, as it is for most CIA officers. One of the things that I was briefed on very early, Senator, was by the CIA records management folks about the use of Signal as a permissible work use. It is. That is a practice that preceded the current administration to the Biden administration.
I do think it is easy for the left to try and use this as a gotcha moment. And they are. They certainly are. Hillary Clinton tweeted last night, you've got to be kidding me, to the article because of this email server. I think that the politics part of it is going to be messy, and regardless of which side you're on, you're going to disapprove of what the other side does and the decision they make.
Now, I couldn't have asked for a better segue, and it feels like we set you up for this because you mentioned the first thing. You mentioned Benghazi and all of those type of things that happened, and it felt like there was no accountability for some of these massive problems that happened. And I want to move our attention to the Afghanistan withdrawal. And I know that it's old news now. You may be like, Logan, that was 2021. Why are we still talking about this? We're talking about it because people lost their lives, and we've been digging and digging, and our servicemen lost their lives And women.
If you'll remember, it was a disaster, and 13 service members lost their lives at that Abbey Gate bombing. And our FOIA request was trying to get information about how they arrived at this decision to do the withdrawal from Afghanistan in this way. And it just so happened that yesterday, while all of these this Signal Gate issue was going on Twitter and on cable news, our lawyers sent this over and said, we just got a new production on the Afghanistan FOIA
we're not
from the State Department. And here's what we found. This dissent cable was sent to Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman, Deputy Secretary of State Brian McKeon, and Undersecretary of State Victoria Nuland. Those are the swampiest of the swamp.
Yeah, we know
Obama,
those names.
Biden, bad actors. And they are policymakers. They are the ones that were driving the Biden foreign policy. And they were carryovers from the Obama administration. And they received this cable on July 13th of 2021. And it said, "Good afternoon. We've received the dissent channel message below expressing concerns regarding U.S. policy towards Afghanistan. Please let me know if you'd like to provide initial guidance to shape our response on this matter." July 13th is about a month before Kabul fell and about 5 weeks before the bombing at Abbey Gate.
Yeah, understand that this happened. This isn't this isn't, warnings. This happened all before there was clear warning that this was not going to go the way they thought it was going to go.
Their content is still classified, and so it is redacted for the purpose of our FOIA. But I want you to hear this last paragraph that's not classified.
Right.
It says, prior to resorting to this dissent channel cable, drafters made every effort to ensure the above alternative foreign policy views were communicated in full and timely manner through regular operating channels and procedures. They were not being listened to. They are the people that were on the ground saying, Washington, you're going to mess this up. And it ended up costing 13 American lives because they wouldn't listen at the State Department, and they had to resort to their last resort a month before the fall of Kabul, 5 to 6 weeks before Americans died. And Wendy Sherman, Brian McKeon, and Victoria Nuland faced no consequences. They were ignoring the cries on the ground saying, don't do this, and people died. And yet you're hearing the left today say that an inadvertent discussion, which cost no American lives, which wasn't classified information, and actually ended up being a foreign policy move that was successful. They're saying, make them resign now. That's a double standard. The double standard is when the left is fine with these people that wouldn't change their policy because they had it set in their mind. They wouldn't listen to the people in their own government saying, don't do this. And they remained for 4 years. But now they're saying, make these people resign.